Welcome back to Imperium Galactica. You're looking at the battle screen just over an hour after the end of the previous episode. We have conquered Garthog 3. Battle was pretty much the same as the first couple of battles. There was 3 ion projectors in orbit. And you can see the enemies here. 7 light, 3 medium, and the 1 special tank being the radar car. So, 1 fortress. That knocked out a couple of our tanks at the end. Just really nothing new that we haven't seen on the previous invasion, so I did that off screen. Now we will definitely be seeing more ground combat, more invasion of the Garthog, etc. happening later, but for now we've sort of got an in-between period. We need to shift from Phase 1, which is now complete, first 3 Garthog planets under our control, and prepare for Phase 2, which is getting ready to invade the Garthog capital at Garthog 4. Now why go there? Why not just take this other, lesser defended planet? Well, there are a couple development centers on Garthog 4, which is weird because you can only build 1 on a planet, but they have 2 there. Don't ask me why. And we're going to want those for some of our research. The rank will end as soon as we take both of these planets. So if I were to take Garthog 1 first, then I wouldn't have time to do the research that I'm going to need these development centers for. And I can, grab this first, do that research while we're hitting Garthog 1. So that's the thought process behind that. There's no huge reason other than a little bit of, sooner cash that we would benefit from going after Garthog 1 now. I do need to relocate my fleet. So we're just going to move that back over here. We'll see why a little bit later. And then let's get set up on our new planet here in Garthog 3. And, of course, we want to max out the 2 police stations, but they already have 1. So we only have to build 1 more. So that's nice. Do the same waiting game for the population to come around to the fact that they've been occupied, and that's just the way it is. And then we want to move forward a little bit, and then we'll get into, there we go, some of our plans. So we are finishing up this solar plan, or getting it closer, rather. Not going to be able to finish it up until we get the right development centers. And one of those is, in fact, going to be the one that's on Garthog 4.
Research stopped.
There we go. So we're going to stop that. That's going as far as it can. We're going to shift back into the cruiser. And why cruiser? This probably deserves a little bit of explanation. The walkthrough recommends the Destroyer 2. Now, obviously, compared to the Destroyer 1, the cruiser is much better. We have seen that already. We've had both of them as our flagships. More firepower on the cruiser, more options, etc. The Destroyer 2 carries a handful of the lasers plus a whole bunch, I think 14, of the pulse lasers, which is the more advanced laser that we haven't researched yet. But even if we had this, I would still want the cruiser. The cruiser is cheaper. You don't have to build nearly as many extra weapons. It comes with 6 out of 8 lasers and 1 out of 2 ion guns. It has the option for radar, which we're going to want going forward into the next rank. And it also comes with, and I'm not sure why it's done this way, but the destroyers, neither one of them come with a light shield. The cruiser does. So that's another 4,000 credits and more time that we are going to save by going in that route. So pretty much from every angle, I just think the cruiser is the superior choice for what we want it to do. Now, the Destroyer 2 is excellent with all those pulse lasers. They have higher rate of fire. It's really good at knocking out, you've got a swarm of fighters coming at you and they're going to kamikaze, etc. Really good for that. But the thing about it is, we don't really care because it's not necessary for anything that we're going to have to do here. So, since we can get by without it, I'm just going to push in developing the Destroyer 2 off further. And we're going to throw in a few cruisers, and that will complete what we're going to want from the fleet standpoint. Now, in the larger research picture, there are a few categories that we're going to skip. And as we're now making our plan for the business end of Commander rank, it's worth talking about those. First of all, fighters. Fighters are effective. They're not bad. And we could go develop the Hammerhead, and we could go up further. We've seen that, they're good in the kamikaze standpoint. There are some of the advanced fighters you can get later in the game that are more powerful, harder to hit, etc. Everything scales up. But the main drawback that makes it not worth the investment to research them at this point, in my opinion, is that they simply take too long to build. It takes almost as long to build a fighter as it does, a ship of the line, a destroyer or cruiser. And obviously they're not as good. Like, it's not a price thing. It's a time to build thing. And so the only case in which I would actually want to invest in those is if I had at least a couple of, fleets maxed out with flagships and destroyers or cruisers, and I had money, I didn't have anything I needed to use that money for. Maybe I'd want to max out my fleet capacity to get to the highest combat power I possibly could. That would be a very late game thing if it happens at all. There's no other reason why I need to advance here. Another thing is prerequisites. Fighters are not needed to develop other things. Whereas if we look at, for example, I'm going to want this field array to expand our capabilities for radar on ships, but I'm also going to want it because of other things that can come later. Same with the hyperdrive. These are required to build things that I'm going to want down the road. As opposed to not true of the fighters, and also not true of some of the buildings here. The planetary defense buildings, the inversion shields and the plasma projectors. There's no reason I need to research those unless I want to build them, and I don't, because we're going to make sure that enemy fleets never make it to our colonies. So, just going to interdict them in space, and that's the way it's going to be. So we don't need to spend a bunch of research time and a bunch of credits and taking up energy and space on all of our planets. Don't need to do any of that. Same thing here with the colony radars. I could go for this field telescope. I'm going to skip that as well. You may remember the Hubble 2 satellites that we had in the past rank, captain rank, that the Colonel gave us. Well, we'll eventually be able to deploy those for ourselves, and I'd much rather use those. They, again, don't take up space on the planet. I don't have to do this research, all of that. So we can just sort of skip those categories entirely and just go for the things that are going to help us. Again, next up being the cruiser. Next day, October 21st, there's a few things worth taking a look at here. Now, I have done some building already on Azusan, putting up another weapons factory. It's going to be very critical for us to max out those now. The thing that's going to slow us down the most in getting our attack ready for Garthog 4 is the weapons, especially the ground vehicles. We are currently researching the rocket sled, but we're going to need a double load of vehicles. We've got just over one full load now. Of course, the flagships are nearly full. And then the bombs, we're going to need a bunch more of them as well. So I'm going to queue up for today a couple dozen. That should be more than enough to keep these factories busy for now. And then with that rocket sled that we're now resuming research on as we have completed the cruiser research, I do still need another development center here, the computer one, before I'm going to be able to finish that. So let's go ahead and hop in here and get that going as well. And then this weapons factory nearly completed on the repair, and then once that's done and the one gets up on Zeus, and we'll have the maximum that we can have for our current 9 planets, 9 weapons factories. That's going to be the best that we can do in terms of being prepared. So obviously not really any more money that we can afford to spend, but I do want to hop in here and just move along with this rocket sled. Be careful that we don't let it go too far. There we go. We're just going to stop it about there. It's about to halt on its own. Then I'm just going to move on and start knocking out gradually some of these other projects. We'll go ahead and do the pulse laser. We are going to want that eventually. We're going to continue going at maximum speed. Okay, and let's just do our usual check around. If they still hate us there, of course we just took over that planet. Still not ready up to be neutral as Garthog 2. And Naxos is ready to take a little bit of extra on. Oh. Okay, well that's something new. Let's take a look at what's going on there.
The aliens have attacked us. Come immediately. It seems they're preparing for a ground attack. We're going to need all the reserve.
Huh. I don't know why that's all static. There's some sort of communication error. Let's get on the horn and talk to that New Caroline governor.
You call me about the invasion, Governor?
No, everything is normal here. Maybe someone else called you.
Yeah. Everything's not normal. Is there actually an invasion even happening? Because you got a different, voice actor doing the different roles. The actual Governor of New Caroline, I've talked to him before when we had the issues with the virus. He says everything's fine. So who is that other person reporting in from New Carolina? What is going on there anyway? Now, as disturbing as all this is, that's actually not the worst of it. Because this is the point at which we really start to see the game breaking because of how fast I'm going through these objectives. So if we zoom in here, here's the Garthog fleet that's headed towards New Caroline. Look where it's coming out of. It's coming out of Garthog 5, which has been our territory for days. It's just spontaneously has appeared right in the middle of our radar coverage. How is that even possible? Well, you remember earlier, the Colonel sent us transports instantaneously across the galaxy. Are the Garthog doing something like that? What's actually happening here is it's simply the scripting of the game. They don't expect you to have been able to pull off this invasion nearly this quickly. So it's just scripted to, well, at a certain point after you get promoted to commander rank, at a certain gap of time, and we can see here that it's been about 2.5 weeks, which is the typical allotment, they will spawn a fleet that's going to go start attacking your planets. You can't just sit back forever. They're going to start attacking you. Well, it just spawned at Garthog 5, assuming that we wouldn't have control of the planet. But we do. So, we get to see some action now. Won't that be exciting? Let's send our fleet in. That's why we moved it down here, to be able to intercept. And let's run these people off. Let's see what they have. We are slightly faster than them, so intercepting is not a problem. Okay, they've got a flagship, they've got a couple destroyers, a handful of fighters. Now, they're not as strong as we are. Not even close, as you can see. But we can still take some significant damage here if we're not careful. So I want to go into this formation. We are going to slide this one fighter back a bit. And essentially, we're going to try to shoot down their missiles per usual. Now, once they get started over here, we are actually going to use our own missiles as well. And we're going to go after their destroyers. Our goal is to convince them that this is not a fight worth fighting. And generally speaking, knock out their destroyers with missiles, and we can accomplish that task. Boom. Boom. 2 destroyers gone, just like that. And, oh, gonna turn around and leave? What a shame. The party was just getting started. So we lose 2 fighters to their missiles, and we're fine otherwise. So I will take that. After battle screen, we knocked out 2 fighters and 2 destroyers. Now we can chase them if we want. What they're going to do, we just move this forward to see, they're going to slide off this way. They're going to escape off the edge of the screen, and it doesn't seem to make any difference from what I can tell whether you eliminate them or whether you let them go in terms of their further attacks. But if our mission in this rank is to defeat the Garthogs, then why do we have a scenario where they're retreating off the map? Like, we're going to conquer Garthog 4 and Garthog 1. Are there more Garthog territories out there awaiting us later? Because they're just going to keep... I mean, all of that is quite strange. But all we have really to do now is just, continue proceeding forward. Continue checking everything that we need to check, and you can slide back down. Our research, of course, is still fine. It's not done yet. It'll be done almost towards the end of the day here. And, we can send our fleet back so that it's ready on Garthog 4. We can sort of realign it rather towards Garthog 4, because that's going to be the next thing we're going to do eventually, is we're going to attack. Skipping forward a few days, we're jumping back in on October 25th near midday. And just for reference, that's just over 5 days after we conquered Garthog 3. We are now ready to press in. Now, what's been going on in the meantime? Well, we did have another reactor accident at Achilles that set us back a very slight amount time-wise. We built another hospital on Centronome, which had the usual temporary effect on population growth. We are getting income now from all 3 Garthog planets. Again, not a lot, but we have some coming in. I wanted to show a couple screens here I haven't gotten to yet. One is just the financial info. This gives you the overview of your entire empire. It's getting big enough now that this is becoming relevant. And since the Garthog planets have lower tax morale, this was up usually around 94%, it's dropped a little bit. That's the tax morale for your whole empire. And then you can see our tax income, almost 80,000, and trade income, 7,200. So, 85, 87,000, somewhere in there is our daily income. That's not bad, everything that we're spending. So this can be kind of interesting. And then this screen, Inventions, is just sort of gives you an overview of all the different tech things. Now, the field array is what we're currently researching. So that's in white. And then the green are things that we could at least research to some extent. There would be red if there was nothing, if it was things we couldn't research at all. It doesn't distinguish between ones that you can research part of or all of. And then, of course, the yellow or orange or whatever it is, more orange probably, that's the ones you already have. So if we want to take a look at one of these, say the solar plant, we can just pop into it from here. So that's a nice little bit, another way you can get to the research area. And on the research front, I've actually slowed down just to save a little bit of cash, because we're actually ahead of the pace we need to be. So I've slowed down on that field array that we're working on, but that's the only thing we have left. We have this hyperdrive up. No point in building those yet. You have to have one on every ship in the fleet, and they only give you, like, each level of hyperdrive gives you a +2 to your speeds, like 28 to 30 to 32, etc. So, not worth building a bunch of those up, but we will want to progress on that as we go forward. And we do still have outstanding the Destroyer 2, but I'm actually not interested in that. So we're just going to kind of leave that be. And we're going to progress on with our attack. Now, it does seem that they repair their items in between attacks by cycles. Meaning at, like 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 18 o'clock, top of the day. So we want to be able to hit the planet as soon after a cycle begins as we can. And it just so happens we're going to be fairly close to that here. An hour or so past midday ship time, at least. But we are progressing in, and let's take a look what we have first. So we've got the 3 flagships fully outfitted. We've got 19 medium tanks and the 5 rocket sleds. I haven't talked really enough about those yet, I don't think. So these are slower to build than the medium tanks, so we're taking a little bit of extra time to put those in. But I feel that, as we've seen the impact they could have in the one battle before, I think they're best used sparingly because of how fragile they are. So the mix that I'm using, it may not be perfect, but I think it's close to where you're probably going to want to be. I've got 19 medium tanks and then 5 of these rocket sleds. The idea is we'll see this in the next episode, but I'm going to try to keep these behind the tanks, have the tanks protect them, and go with that variety. And then I added 3 cruisers, so we have a total of 4 of those to go along with our 7 destroyers, and these are, of course, fully outfitted with their lasers and ion guns and shields and all of those things that we're going to need. So that's my attack group that I'm going to go with. And it is just past noon. On approach to the Garthog homeworld. And this is not an attack we can do at once. There's going to be some back and forth here. Okay, so we'll get to these later, but these are the space bases, the orbital installations. They are quite powerful. And they are painful. And there is no easy, simple way to go after attacking them. You think of them as the fortresses of space combat. And if you look at their range, it's even a little bit further out than the guns can hit. So we definitely want to stay out of their range. We don't even care about them for right now. Bombs can't hit them. So there's no point in even trying. What we want to do is take out the planetary defenses, take out any fighters, any support craft that they have. In this case, just fighters. So we are going to slide forward and do our usual drill against those attackers. And they are going to send some missiles our way. That's part of the deal of dealing with the space bases. Okay. So we're going to move forward a little bit. Again, staying out of everybody's range. And we're going to follow the usual deal here, which is we want to knock out the inversion shield first. And with this many weapons going on, they are virtually guaranteed to shoot down a little bit more missiles. So I was getting away with 7 before. I'm going to fire 8 bombs at this inversion shield. And I don't like the fact that you're still moving forward there, pal. Yeah. That's not good. You back up right now. Okay. So let's just make sure that we're safe. Okay, let's throw, and one more might do it here, actually. It did, even though we're facing the wrong way. Okay, so let's sort of just sort that out and turn you around and do this sensibly. Got away with that, but I don't want to make a habit of it. Okay, so now, not you. You already fired off a missile. Now we're going to work on these, and 3 of these are plasma projectors, not the ion projectors. So the more powerful the next version up. So we'll fire 1 from each of you. And then to even up our bomb count, we will fire 1 from those 2, and that'll give us 5 going at that one. Then we're going to head 4 at this one right here. And we'll throw a couple at this one, and then we'll see where we are. Okay, that went well. All kinds of defensive fire. Now, I do want to knock this one out if at all possible. Because obviously they can't repair it if it's dead. So where are we at in terms of our supply of bombs? Really have 2 left for all of them? We're doing better than I thought. Okay. Fire 1 here. And another 2 at that next one. And let's see how that works. Well, they didn't get too far with this one, did they? Let's, for our final bit here, we're going to throw 2 more at you. And then 1 bomb at this one. Well, that, again, I was really hoping to knock this one out. We didn't do that. But we're out of bombs. So we're going to retreat. We're all just going to run away. And then we're going to come back. But we've got to reload before we do that. And when we come back, we are going to take a look at dealing with... We're going to deal with the space bases as well. But before we can do anything, we've got to resupply. Now, you can't shoot at the space bases. You can't shoot them with bombs. You can shoot them with missiles. But it's really not a good idea. And I want to take a quick look at why that is. So beginning, starting over at the beginning here, let's see what happens if we shoot off a bunch of missiles at these space bases. And let's see, let's fire off a bunch from you as well. Now, some of them hit. But some of them hit, like, over here and back here. Let's try this one more time. See, they go all sorts of places. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, look at that. Yeah. So, most of them will miss. And in general, they'll tend to do as much damage to your fleet as they do to the enemy. And as a matter of fact, this is actually better than the way it normally goes. A typical event launching that many, I'd have lost a couple destroyers to my own friendly fire. So it's just not worth firing missiles at these, and you can't hit them with bombs, so the only way to do it is to rush in with your ships, and we'll be seeing that next episode, but that's why I sort of call them the fortresses of space combat, and that's also why we needed to build the additional cruisers, so that we could take them out. But that'll be coming up next time. We'll be coming back to Garthog 4, and while this episode had a lot of just dealing with the build-up, next one's pretty much going to be chock full of combat. The ground resistance on Garthog 4 is considerable as well, so much work here to be done as we work on taking down the crown jewel of the enemy territory. So thanks for watching, and that'll be coming up soon as Imperium Galactica continues.